Hello, my name is Cody. Welcome to the Unifying Field podcast. I am so glad you are here. I've started incorporating other people's stories into this show, and I've talked about in the past how our stories have the ability to create heaven or hell on earth for us and the people we interact with. That is, if we attach to the stories our egos create, and that is absolutely true. We absolutely view the world through the lens of the stories we are attached to, good or bad. However, our stories are equally as powerful in inspiring others going through similar situations and inspiring them with the knowledge that, hey, it is possible to overcome this suffering, this pain. It shows others that it is possible to become free from the bondage of the mind and truly change our worlds for the better. And when we change our inner world, we now acquire the power to change the outer world. So from the bottom of my heart, I am thankful you are here. Welcome to the Unifying Field. Well, today we have a very special guest and one who has been on here before. Actually, he was my first guest. Please welcome Mikhia Stevens.
Hello. Hey y'all.
So, before we get started, let's start with what you've been up to with like your band and stuff. I'm representing today,
Yeah, oh,
for
got the
those
My
who can
Nightmare
see.
shirt. Very nice. I like that. I drew that logo actually. That was a big thing for the band. They really wanted a logo that was simplistic that would look good on a shirt and managed to hit the mark, I think. It's kind of unique. But as far as what I've been up to with the band specifically, we've got some shows coming up here in Fayetteville. We've got one the 26th of this month. We've got one May 8th also. Both metal shows. It should be a lot of fun. We're excited. We have now seven singles of the 10 from the entire album. We've just been subsequently releasing singles every 30 to 45 days in hopes to generate more drive for the full album. So we are 7 out of 10 right now. And yeah, that's really about it. Just playing. I got my, this is my little home studio. This is where I keep my home drums. It's different from my practice space, or this is my personal practice space. It's different from the band's practice space.
Right.
But yeah, just kind of trucking along and making connections and trying to get on as many shows as we can while still, being busy with our own lives and stuff. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely have to get out there and go do some moshing.
oh, you have to, man. Yeah, if you come out and do some mosh, and we'll do a big China breakdown just for you.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ways. I thought I was using like being in the mosh pit as like shadow work, but that was wrong. It's a healthy way to express anger, like built up anger for long periods of time. That's what it is. It's not shadow work. It's just a safe space to let loose and you know get the wind knocked out of you. Or hopefully,
Hopefully not
no
your team knocked out of you. You got the windmill kids in there. No
karate.
no karate in the pit. The hardcore dancing and all that moshing, the crazy moshing, right?
Yeah, and you're at your little YouTube space too. So what's going on with that?
That is at the very, very beginning stages. So I have just started to work on scripts and stuff. The problem I'm having is like the problem that I think we all had is trying to make it too perfect in the beginning instead of just doing it, right? So I've just got to do it. And I have some time allotted tomorrow to actually film my first video. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome.
Now, that's different from, the social media content that I put out for like playing music and drumming and stuff like that. This is just strictly a, a channel that I've wanted to create for a while, but we're in the very infant stages. So I don't really have a ton I could talk about it personally, but The next interview, I definitely will.
Awesome. Uh, yeah, I mean that was pretty much what I did with this thing. I mean, I had something in mind. I had the spirituality focus, wanting to talk about things that help people confront their demons and that kind of stuff, and really take control over their lives. And it started off with just being me doing things alone, and I've been interviewing a lot of guests here lately, and that's been a ton of fun. Really learning what I believe, learning what other people believe, and kind of sharing ideas. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, just got to get started and let the details work them out themselves. And yeah,
No, you're exactly right. The the hardest part is to just start. And I think that's true with about anything.
it's scary, doing something different, putting yourself out there. That's really scary.
Oh, absolutely.
I know this from experience. I'm a introvert.
Well, and especially because you set your ideas are going out to not just a certain amount of people in a room or anything, but to potentially millions of people, who can see
Eventually, yeah,
the stuff, and you've got to get over the fact that not everyone's going to resonate with you, or not everyone's going to vibe with your ideas, or think that what you do is impressive or want to follow you. But there's a good amount of people who might.
absolutely. But what if somebody says something mean to me?
Oh, well, then I'm shutting my laptop forever.
You gotta quit.
Yeah, you
Just
just got to be
one.
done. If one negative comment, and I'm moving, I'm gone.
Yeah, who cares what other people think? 'Cause this has been the thing with me. There's very few people I know in real life. Well, I guess this is real life too, but in my physical vicinity, who gets down like I get down with spiritual stuff, eclecticism, being open to all kinds of stuff. And yeah. So yeah, you can kind of find your tribe and see who resonates with you. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people who don't, but there's going to be a lot of people who do. So,
Well, I think there's a certain requirement of open-mindedness to even go into something like that. And as well as I do, we're right smack dab in the middle of the Bible Belt. So a lot of that stuff doesn't vibe with a ton of people because of maybe how they were raised or how they were just taught. I don't know.
well, and not just the Bible Belt, but like I think the U.S. in general is pretty. I mean, it's getting better. With the internet, everything is a lot better. But if you're a witch, most witches, I bet, don't go out there and advertise that that's what they are, because then they're going to get picketed or whatever, by Christians, calling them demon worshippers and stuff.
Which, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the pilgrims.
So it would be awesome if we could express, in the way that we see fit. But we're not quite there yet. We're still in a very judgmental society at the moment, but I think it's getting better.
I think that judgment falls on a lot of different things too. It's not just spirituality, it's your choice of
Oh goodness gracious,
car you
political.
drive, your political ideologies, your choice of career, your type of music you listen to. It could be anything. And I think that going back to the YouTube thing that we just spoke about earlier, and just starting, it's just doing you and not really focusing so much on what other people think
Hmm.
is a big thing. Because you will find your tribe, just like you said.
Did you see? I forget what this girl's band name was, but she's a metalcore singer, really heavy, and she was set to play in churches around the country, along with a band that I've seen live a couple times at that Christian concert that I go to with my family each year. You know, it's a free deal out in Oklahoma. And churches have been canceling her because her music is too scary. You know,
What?
even if the music is all Christian lyrics and stuff, she's a Christian herself. You know, she just looks a little different. You know, the goth look and you know, really heavy music. And I'm just like, it kind of makes me think of when the monks were doing their walk from Texas up to Washington. Did you see that?
Uh-uh.
That was all over Facebook. But then again, I'm into all kinds of spirituality, so of course I'm going to see that.
I'm just into memes.
I like memes too. We
I
send
get
each
the
other
memes.
memes.
I get the memes, I get the drumming videos, and I get dog videos, and that's usually it. So
But yeah, I saw a lot of stuff where Christians were protesting the monks who were walking to DC for peace. I'm like, I
why?
don't, do
Are
you
we
not
aren't they on the
remember
same side, you'd think? You know, like
don't,
what the heck?
have you never heard the Sermon on the Mount that said, blessed are those, or blessed are, why can't I think of that? Blessed are
I'm gonna look it up right now. Blessed are what?
something peace. Blessed
The
are,
peace the peacemakers?
right. Blessed are the peacemakers. And,
Uh Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Is that
oh, wow. Yeah.
Matthew 5:9?
And then another one is, blessed are those that show mercy, for they shall be shown mercy, or something like that. You know, this is what they're all about. Like, come on, guys. Anyways, but going back to that Christian singer, that
Who was
was
that, by the way? Do you know the name or
the band that was touring with them. They were supposed to be headlining, but it was Seventh Day Slumber. But the
Seventh
whole
Day
show,
Slumber 4?
they're opening for the the other band.
No, okay.
But it's like not everybody. I, I talked to my wife about this, and you know, there's this movie called The Jesus Revolution. It's a very good story. And back in, I don't, was it 60s or 70s, whatever it was, where the Christianity or the church in general, not necessarily Christianity, but the church was boring. Like, I don't know. It was, I can't remember the story exactly.
And then what decade did you say this was? The 60s or 70s? Is that what you said?
60s or 70s. And so this was like the young people, you know, were trying to, they wanted Jesus, but they didn't want the old church, which was boring. You know, that was kind of where the start of, if I remember correctly, that was kind of the start of where contemporary, you know, like regular Christian music would come from, not just like singing a hymn out of a, you know, out of a book in the back of a pew. You know, it would
Oh,
be
so like
stuff you would hear
modern
on the radio.
Christian rock
Yeah,
or something?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And that was different, you know, and that was, there was a lot of judgment from the church back then. And, but ultimately the revolution ended up working out. But here we are again, back in the same place where churches are prematurely judging this person and who would be able to reach people that would not be able to be reached by the, you know, regular music, you know, regular or Christian music. And just because it sounds angry does not mean it's angry. It doesn't mean that it's demon possessed. It doesn't mean all this other BS. Like, come on, people. Like,
I That's very true. And this is a terrible example because of over the years, the circumstances that have surrounded this band, but we've talked about them before. As LA Dying, you know.
Yeah.
Um, back before Tim Lambesis tried to have his wife killed, and they were a Christian metalcore style band, right? The Christian, right? The lyrics from, oh shoot, Greater Foundation. Do you know that song of theirs?
No.
It's one of my favorite of theirs, but um, and the main chorus is, "As we face distress, we must not lose hope,
Oh yeah.
steadfast and press on." Right?
Mhm.
Something along those lines. I might have messed up the lyrics a little bit, but and I remember listening to that song at my sister's house, and my oldest sister did not like any heavy music like that. She was just, what the heck is that? Sounds evil, right? Until I pulled up the lyrics and made her read the lyrics while they were playing the song on the music video. And she said, I never would have guessed that that's what they were saying. I thought that they were trying to summon demons, right? And I think that's just very true. Be, you got to have an introduction to music like that. And if you just get thrown into it a lot of times, for probably 9 out of 10 people, it's not going to resonate well, which is why I believe we've talked about this as well. The the gateway bands are so important. The bands that you hear on the radio rock, everyone,
Mhm.
the butt rock style bands, or the XM legend bands, or but what is the channel on XM? What is the big channel that everyone listens to
It's been
on it?
so long.
It's the big rock and roll, or the heavy rock channel, right?
Mhm.
That's why those things are important, because it gets the casual listeners. If there's just a little bit of a scream, or a little bit of a heavy breakdown, or a little bit of a growl or something in those songs, it gets people going into that direction, right?
Mhm.
It's it's the it's the free bump. First one's free.
Yeah.
First one's free, kid. It's that into the heavy world of music, and it is very important. It is incredibly important, because again, not everybody is going to jump into the harsh lyrics, the super heavy guitar, the crazy drums, or breakdowns, or anything like that. But it is important to at least understand that. I mean, for example, you have beautiful country songs, or beautiful light rock songs, or pop songs about people overdosing or killing people,
Mhm.
or God knows what, you take your seven deadly sins and throw them into a song there. But there's really no villainy in that. I mean, think about Foster the People's Pumped Up Kicks.
Yeah.
Think about what that song is actually about. And most people just, like, when they hear it, they're just like, I love this song. This is awesome. And because it's just like a vibey song, until you realize it's a song about, putting up your classmates, right? Like, it's not a very it's very what, like, good and evil kind of flipped like that. But again, we don't have the ear, or a lot of people don't have the ear for metal music to understand what exactly is being said, and it does take a little bit of dissection. So,
And stuff like Spotify, for example, is really easy to look at the lyrics, because I don't know if Apple does that, but Spotify does, and you can see all of that. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of, because of that period where I guess metalcore was really coming in. There's a lot of bands that were at least doing clean lyrics, but also, like, the one I think of is The Devil Wears Prada. You know, Dogs Can Grow Beards All Over is one of my favorite songs by them, probably my favorite song. And that could easily be a Christian song. It's one of the
oh,
heaviest songs out there. I mean, yeah. Don't judge a
in
book by its cover. Like the, the church, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Did you ever find who that was?
Who? What were we supposed to look up? The Seventh Day Slumber, right?
Well, that whoever they're touring with, where their
What
shows.
tour was that? What was the date? What
Uh,
year?
well, it was supposed to be upcoming,
Oh,
so this is a recent thing.
um, let me see here. Seventh Day Slumber. Is it Magdalene Rose?
Yeah, that's her. That's her.
She was the first one that popped up. So,
I haven't listened to
oh
her.
yes, she's very pretty. Okay. Heaven's Metal is, I guess, her tour or her persona. I'm not really sure. Okay.
I'm not even sticking up for Christianity because I don't even care about religion anymore. But I'm still around it, and I still go to church occasionally, like I did on Easter.
Hey, not to interrupt, but she's coming to Paris, Arkansas, and Charleston, Arkansas, May 22nd, 23rd.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So looks like that's a Friday and Saturday, South Franklin County Fairgrounds on the 23rd, and then the Community Transformation Church in Paris.
Very cool.
Now, that's kind of cool, right?
I wonder if they'll go to that free show I was talking about because that's pretty close to here.
After that, she goes to looks like New Mexico, Arizona, California. She's got a West Coast direction, and then back to Shawnee, Oklahoma, and then
Mm,
Texas, and then ends up finishing it up in Wyoming and Idaho.
gotcha.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not sticking up for Christianity because I really don't care for religion anymore as it is. It's just an observation, you know.
No, no, you're exactly right. And I think a lot of those bands really, what other choice did they have other than to go under a Christian band persona? Even if and I'm not saying a lot of them just did it just to do it to be part of the group or because they thought it was going to be easier or whatever. I think a lot of them probably did have those genuine values or that made them a a Christian band, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but uh, I think it was exponential growth for not just the band, but for the kids who didn't really have that other kind of outlet unless they could be like, hey, no, mom, like this is a Christian band. Like you can see this here, read this article or something, right? It'd be like, imagine trying to, you imagine you're a Christian kid, you're like 13 years old, you want to start playing music or something, and you go and show your mom Nile, or, you go and show your mom Behemoth and she has a heart attack because you
Yeah,
gotta
there.
start a little different there.
Yeah, Behemoth is probably the other one too. Is openly satanic. Is that right?
I don't know if they're and
Or it could
I
be
really
show. It
I
could be all
really
show
don't
too.
know. It could be show. I think the only openly satanic ones that I knew of were like Gogoroth,
Oh.
and that was the meme of him like with the chalice, and they're like, "What drives Gogoroth's music?" And he's like, "Satan," and and which the Gogoroth is I believe it's the term or it's the fields of Mordor.
Oh, okay.
Is like the giant chasm of Mordor, and someone's going to correct me somewhere, but I believe that's what it was just the fields either just before or within Mordor. I could be getting that wrong. Someone who's a huge Lord of the Rings nerd is going to take me, but
They're gonna sense this out from across the internet and be like,
I know, and you know what? I'm googling it right now. Uh, High desolate plain in northwestern Mordor. I was right. Okay.
"Sweet,
Enclosed by the Morgai, blah, blah, blah. Yes. So just the giant field from the gate all the way to the Mount Doom, the volcano.
very cool." I haven't watched that series in a while. I need to do that. But you know what I have been watching? We'll
What's
get to
that?
that here in a second. But I want to get to the point of today's episode, which is Actually, based on a comment on one of my, I think it was my first episode with somebody I didn't, already know beforehand. And it was a recent comment, but it really spoke to me because I really resonated with that. And that comment from that person said, everything has lost its meaning. I have no purpose, and I'm really sick. Yes, it does help to know I am not alone. And that really hit home for me because before my awakening, I had purpose in life. Like I had something I was working on, whether it be something spiritually or, with a family and hopes and dreams and things. And as part of an awakening, or at least in my case, I found everything that I was looking for, which was, that God wasn't outside of me. Like the awakening process or the spiritual journey is like a lot of it is going for something, acting as if, it's the same with religion. You're going for something outside of you. And then when you find it, even if you know that it's inside of you, you don't really know until until you're shown this. And once you find that, you know that you aren't separate from anybody. The beautiful states don't stay where they're at. Your ego comes back, but maybe your ego is not in full control anymore, but it still shakes everything up about what you thought was meaningful, what your purpose was that you had in mind before, and all of these things. And so it's kind of a weird state. I don't even know if I would call it the dark night of the soul, but that's something that I think it's kind of related to it because there can be a lot of depression with that, which kind of sucks because that's a very dark place, to have no meaning and no purpose in life because you found everything. And it's kind of like, well, why am I here? If you're still here on earth, you clearly got something that you've got to do. You've got a mission here, but all of a sudden you have no meaning and purpose. And that's a very annoying place to be in. It's like your soul, at least from my understanding, your soul has never left the kingdom of God. And your soul wants nothing and needs nothing. It's completely fine, no matter what your situation is. If you found God in that way, it doesn't matter where you're at. Your soul could care less. It still has something it wants to do in this life. This is why it came here in the first place. But you can't get rid of the ego. It can loosen up its control and that kind of thing. You may regain control over that, but so you still have to live life as the ego, even if you resonate more with your soul. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today, because that's kind of a really tough place to be in, I think. And really, that's what I've been experiencing too. My wife said that she thinks I'm going through a midlife crisis right now.
You tell her you're only 30, you're in your 30s?
Not for much longer, but and she was like, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm like, well,
Oh,
maybe
she said the midlife crisis wasn't bad?
well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I was comfortable in my job. Not comfortable. Who am I kidding? I've been ready to get out of that place for the longest time. And after my experience, like my soul was like, no, get the hell out of there. Like it's time. We're not gonna let it. Yeah. So my life has been completely shaken up, and it's been pretty cool, pretty scary, but pretty cool. There's one.
You what?
I said.
Oh, I've already said several,
No,
so we're going
not
to
not
edit those
enough to
out.
be noticeable. Uh, for those who don't know, Mikhia was in my first episode with me, and doing the editing, I realized there was like 500 ums in that episode. I'm like, holy,
We said and like
yeah,
probably 10,000 times in which we spoke for 3 hours.
yeah,
It
yeah.
didn't feel like 3 hours, or it was close to 3 hours, I believe.
After all the,
Could you, is butt also one of them? Like, is it
I don't think
and
so.
like and butt? I guess you could overuse it, but don't overuse the butt.
Anyways, yeah, it's trying to figure out what you're supposed to do is, yeah, I'm not an expert at this. Like I'm actively trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing too. I feel like this podcast is definitely more in line with what I'm supposed to do. But I've got an open mind, and I'm open to this not even being what I'm supposed to be doing. But at least it's closer. It's more in the vicinity of what I'm supposed to be doing here. And maybe it opens doors, that I need open to get to there. But recently, I've been doing some hiking, and so last Friday I went and did this trail, and it was 15.7 miles long. It was very technical. It's very much pain, or a lot of pain.
Where was it?
Devil's Den,
Hmm.
and it was great, man. When I got up to on top of a ridge where it was relatively flat, I decided to, because on a trail that's that long, I didn't want to waste any time and potentially get back in the dark, you know. And I know there's a reason why I didn't want to come back in the dark. It's not because I'm scared of the dark. It's because that trail, there's a lot of sections on the trail, and I remember this from doing it previously, many years ago, that are kind of difficult to navigate. Like these boulder fields where it's not really labeled.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and you can lose the trail very easily
Hmm.
because you're looking for what looks or what is supposed to be a direct path, like the one you followed in, but then from the opposite way coming down, you don't see those same steps, and there could be a gap or something in between the rocks, and it kind of throws you through a loop. So I know exactly what you mean.
It's hard to see like, especially when there's a lot of rocks, like you're actually walking over rocks. Like there's no indentions in the trail to show you that this is where people have been walking. Yeah. So my methodology is to not waste any time, and if I can run a little bit, even though I haven't been running, do what I can. And so that's what I did. And there was a moment where this was earlier on, even before those difficult to navigate moments, but a squirrel, he didn't get scared, before I got to him. He got scared. I don't know what was he doing? Pooping or something, I just threw him off, and then he saw me when I went past him, and then, it's been really dry, and then all of a sudden he shoots across behind me, and I'm thinking it's a bear. I haven't been out on the trail in forever, so of course it's got to be a bear, and there's nobody out there. I didn't see anybody out there, 15 and whatever miles. and scared the shit out of me. But of course, as I turned around, like I'm running, a little faster after that, I turn around and I see this dude. I'm like, you idiot. But, I laughed for a little bit and it put me in the state which I haven't felt in a long time. And it put me in my inner child state. And so I was like, that is interesting. And, as I went through the trail, I was doing the things that I used to. Okay, so backing up even further, back in my military days, back in the 2007 to 2013 days, I got into ultra running a little bit, trail ultra running, and I was kind of crazy with all that stuff, and that's ultimately what got me out of it. Was I ended up getting hurt, because me, I like to, if I
All in.
go all in, yeah, just that's the way I approached it. And one day I ran a 5K. I'm like, wow, I can run a 10K. I ran a 10K. Oh, here's a 25K. I can do that. Did that. Oh, I can do a 50K. And got my butt kicked. I finished it, but I got my butt kicked.
Jeez.
But ever since then, because my mind, this was long before I started meditation, I thought that I was using running, like I was running away from my problems. I thought that's what I was doing. And so why would I go back to doing that? Well, after being back out there on the trail recently, like on that day, I realized I wasn't running away from my problems. Actually, it took me 6 hours, a little over 6 hours to do that. And for all but maybe a handful of minutes, I was present in the moment, and that's all meditation is. Like on its most basic level, there's a lot of stuff you can do with meditation, but for 6 hours, because you go to Colorado every year and you do trails out there with your dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure those trails are probably pretty technical, rocky and stuff in some places. You know how much you've got to be present to know exactly where to put your next step going through the technical sections, especially going down a steep section or whatever. You've got to be in the moment. And most of that trail over there was like that. That's part of why it's so difficult. It's got 2,000 feet of elevation gain and 15.7 miles. And also it's extremely technical, really rocky. And one false step while you're running,
You break your ankle or, something terrible out there and you're alone in the woods with a
well,
squirrel
yeah,
to get you, right?
yeah. And you're like 10 miles out from anybody, at the furthest point or something like that. Or maybe 8 miles from anybody, whatever. I didn't see anybody out there. I was the only person out there that day,
Yeah.
which was awesome. That's what I wanted. I wanted to get away from people, kind of be one with nature for a little bit, and that was successful. But yeah, I was like, okay, like I fell back into everything that I would do back in the day, and I haven't done any trail runs in 10 plus years. But as I'm going up the hill, I'm pushing on my thighs, to help out my quads, because my quads are giving out, and using my upper body strength to help get me up mountains, and all the things, and the hydration things and stuff. And I'm like, is this what is wanting to come back into my life, like, is this who I am? That I was starting to think that I have been suppressing who I really am. Back then I was all about pushing my body to the limits in my mind, not just the body. I can easily push my body to its limits, and that's what ends up getting me hurt. But it's getting through the limits of the mind. That's the bigger thing, you know. Anyways, it was really interesting to think about. And here I was just planning on, you know, all right, I guess I'm going to be an ultra runner again and go do my first 50 miler. And, you know, maybe I can do my first 100 miler and then eventually get to my goal run or race, which is the Hard Rock 100,
Yeah.
But this time with less ego, like, oh, I can do 30, 50, whatever miles, no, we'll build up to that and do it in a way that's sustainable, because ultimately this is the long game. It's not short and sweet. I don't have to do a 100 miler tomorrow. Just do it for the fun of running, you know?
Well, maybe the long game statement you just said also applies to your spiritual journey anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
And
you can't get away from the spiritual, but go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, you mentioned earlier that the trail running kind of brought back your inner child. I wanted to hear more about that.
So what I felt, so after that squirrel, and there was a few moments in there like that where I'm not even in shape right now. My shape is round right now. I'm 40 pounds heavier than I was back when I was trying to do those kind of runs. And yeah, running through the woods that day, it was just, I was a little kid. Like, at first I'm like, got some fear built up, and I see the squirrel and I'm just laughing, and it's a nice long section along a ridge, so it's just nice and flat for the most part. And I'm just free, like out there in the middle of nowhere and just having a ball. And I don't know, I haven't experienced that in a long time. Like even maybe, when we're riding motorcycles, that comes out a little. It has to.
I mean, you're on a 200 horsepower toy, like it has to.
Yeah.
It always did when we were out there.
And that's awesome too, which we need to get bikes again. Because I saw one out there on the trail today. I don't know what it was. It was white with red accents, and the guy had a full, like a one-piece suit on. So he was about to have some fun. That was
Oh,
on
he was gonna
Highway
rip
12.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Well,
know if.
I always think back to the time we went to Ozark.
Oh, yeah.
The
Mhm.
ran during COVID, I had tested positive for COVID, so yeah, they gave me the 3 weeks or whatever, and because you had been near me, they gave you 3 weeks, and
Yeah.
it was right around Christmas time. It was maybe 3 or 4 days before Christmas. I don't even remember, honestly,
Yeah.
but it was a 70-degree day in December. And we just said, screw it, let's go. And you had a ride planned out, and I said, all right, I'll follow you. Like coughing in my helmet, because I still had a little bit of that, but it was fun.
Or on the WR 250Xs, practicing wheelies and stuff and getting kicked out of the unbuilt subdivision area and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah. Yeah, or riding those, because boy, those
oh,
those things had like 30 horsepower. So trying to ride them to Eureka and being able to pass other cars in like the corners, but then they'd catch back up to you in the straights and just dominate you. Could you be,
yeah.
pin, and you got 27 horsepower, I think is what they had. But
But yeah, I think that's really important. Getting back to kind of the point. I mean, it's all part of the point. But I'm starting to think it's, well, first, when you lose all purpose and meaning, it's okay, because all that stuff that you lost is stuff that the world probably says is meaningful, not stuff that is actually meaningful to your soul, and your experience here on earth. So of course, like the things like your family, the people you love and your friends and stuff like that, that's going to be a place that you find meaning and purpose. But also, you've got to go out there and explore and figure out, because the inner child is just another part of your mind, and okay, you are the human, or you are the soul. When you wake up, you realize, I am the soul. I am one with all. We're all just God putting on these virtual reality masks, kind of like in Avatar.
No,
That's literally like, I meant to get this dog toy and show you the way I see things, but I forgot about that. It's in there,
now
but
I'm
anyway,
intrigued.
just picture this then. It's a ball, and it's got these spikes on it, whatever, little pyramid spikes all over it. Very simple to visualize. And so God is all of it, all of the ball, including the spikes. And the spikes would be like, the whole of the spike would be like our higher self, which is not all of us here. We're just a small portion of that. But it's all connected to the whole of God. It can't be separate. And so each spike would be like I have a spike on the ball, you have a spike on the ball, and we're one. We're also God having a human experience with these blinders, this virtual reality mask. And yeah, and then it's the spike. So our experience, even if you're the soul, you're still got the blinder on to where you're likely not going to be able to see everything and know everything that you know as the higher self. So your consciousness, I guess, is just like the tip of the point. That's all you get to see. And that's kind of the point. If God wanted to have a genuine experience as an individual, you would want to limit yourself, limit what you know, not just limit what you can do, but limit what you know, because otherwise then it's not a genuine experience. But that's the way I see everything.
That's like playing a game with no cheat codes. He's just
Yeah.
going in.
Yeah.
Because the cheat codes, while they're fun, but then eventually you want to start a new game with everything being fair.
Yeah.
That makes it unique, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as far as what we are, so you wake up, you know that I am not the ego. I'm not this one who has desires, and I'm not the one who gets angry and all this stuff. But you kind of are. Well, it's not kind of. It's all part of you. Even if you are able to differentiate between the sides of yourself, it's all part of you. And so you can't get away from that. And your inner child fits into that. And I think that is something that, a lot of people with trauma from growing up, it was their inner child who the trauma happened to or whatever. But getting back on track and actually expanding on that, I'm a girl dad, and we watch a lot of Disney stuff. And I was watching Moana the other day, And Moana is one of my favorite ones. So if I have the option of choosing, I will choose Moana because Moana is just fun. And so we were watching it, and I was thinking about this episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, that definitely relevant to this episode right here. And I want to read what I wrote down. It's kind of a if. I know you haven't seen it yet.
I I believe that I had Moana on at some point in my life, but it was for background noise or something, or it was something that came on after something else I watched, maybe on Disney Plus. I don't remember. I do remember the giant lava mom thing, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's about it. So I know that that's part of it, but I have no idea what it's about or anything like that. So
So yeah, the lava. It's actually the demon Taka,
okay.
and we'll get to that here in a second. So Moana, for those of you who don't know, is a Disney movie that, of course, stars Moana, Hey Hey the Rooster, and the demigod Maui, or the Rock, otherwise. And
Who's
so,
the who's the seal?
seal.
Is there not a seal in Moana?
No, not, not. I mean, not in the first one. Maybe there's one in the second one. I don't remember.
No, you know who I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of Gerald.
Gerald.
What is he from? Oh, he's from Finding Dory. Never mind.
Oh.
Sorry. Continue.
So the basic premise of the movie is Moana's grandmother told the story of how Maui stole the heart of Te Fiti, turning Te Fiti into the demon Taka. As a child, Moana was chosen by the ocean to return the heart. The problem was, when Maui stole the heart, her people stopped being voyagers who traveled the seas and stayed within the barriers of the reef for safety. It was too dangerous to go past the reef after that. But eventually, Taka's anger from the stolen heart began killing their island. Their food sources were dying off. Their fishermen could no longer find fish within the barriers of the reef. But they weren't allowed beyond the reef. That's what Moana said. What if we started fishing beyond the reef? I said, no, we can't do it. It wasn't safe. And Moana's grandmother ends up showing her the hidden boats of her voyager ancestors, and she learns the truth of who she and her people are. So all this time, they were staying within the safety of the island, and she didn't know until her grandmother showed her, like in this cave thing, that all these boats, like for the whole people to go out there, and go beyond the reef, like that's what they did. And so her people are voyagers at heart, but living in fear and suppressing that side of them. But now there's no food on the island because the island is dying. And Moana decides to disobey her father's orders to stay at the island in safety and comfort and conformity, and heads beyond the reef in search of Maui to have him return the heart of Te Fiti and restore life to their island. Among the many adventures through the story, she first needed courage to step into the unknown, which is the hardest part. We were just talking about that, with, for example, starting a YouTube channel. That's the hardest part, is just doing it. Don't worry about anything else. Just
What's the saying? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a
begins
single
with,
step. Yeah,
yeah,
begins with a
absolutely.
single step.
And because, she didn't even know that her ancestors were voyagers, wayfinders. She wasn't that yet. So she had to venture beyond the reef, or she decided to venture beyond the reef. She didn't know how to sail or do anything. But, she took that first step and went out there. So she didn't go out there with everything she had or everything she needed, but she had to go out there to actually learn and become that because, nobody else on the island could teach her that since everybody was suppressing that. Any knowledge, was suppressed.
Yeah, they were all scared, right? They all
Mm-hmm.
thought that exact same way.
Because it was the leader that was, her dad, the leader was scared, it seemed like. So if you as the leader of a people are going to be scared, then everybody else probably is as well.
The premise of the movie sounds a little bit like The Croods.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is. And this is just my own, take on it. It's not, maybe this is not what they intended, but I thought it was really relevant to this.
It's all
Anyway,
up into your interpretation, right? Like
yeah,
that's what art is.
yeah.
It's up for those interpretations. So
'Cause I've watched it countless times and didn't get this message from it, you know. So, so she couldn't even get to Tafiti without developing the skills of who she was at heart. And Moana is the story of waking up to our true nature. If she chose safety, conformity, certainty, her and everyone else on the island would have watched their island die, and eventually, so would the people. There wasn't any food anymore. You run out of food, guess what happens? But instead, she followed her heart and her purpose and found Maui. And Maui ended up teaching her wayfinding, how to use the stars to navigate, and restore the heart of Tafiti. And in doing so, helped her people remember who they truly are, voyagers and wayfinders.
a little bit like your story.
It's all of our stories.
Very true.
when you, so her people were voyagers and wayfinders, like they lived on the sea, you know. When you wake up to your true nature, you've got to figure out what that is. Okay, your true nature is the soul, but there's other things that are you. Like you have these special skills. You have this unique set of tools and these qualities about your person that you're embodying. Your avatar is its own unique thing. Even if who you are, who you truly are at heart is one with all. The avatar that you embody is good at stuff, enjoys stuff, and you have your own unique way of expressing creativity in the world, or what's your gift with making a difference in the world, helping people, and that kind of stuff. In my own case, well, let me go back to my midlife crisis real quick.
Yes, I'm interested in all of this, but that for some reason really struck me as like, what did she mean by this? I want to know.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I have gone off the deep end, but this is the way I explained.
Well, it didn't Moana had to go off the deep end, right, to get
True,
to the
yeah, literally.
so
That's
that's
the
it,
yeah,
it all connects. No.
yeah. It definitely all connects. Crap, what was I gonna say?
Your midlife crisis, you're going off the deep, you think you're going off the deep end.
Oh, she was like,
Oh, sorry for yawning. It's not because I'm bored.
"You're fine, you're fine."
I just had a long day, so and I'm trying to listen and like process what you're saying.
Yeah. the the way I explained this to her, because she's very Christian, which is nothing wrong with that, and I told her that it doesn't matter, because she was like, why is this happening now and not earlier on in your life? And I was like, well, when you come into this world, and if you're gonna wake up in this world, first we've got to become somebody. That just seems to be the way it is. But not everybody. Some people come in fully awake, ready to do whatever their soul's mission is. I think that's what a lot of the masters in lore, did. But for the rest of us, when you come into this world, you end up becoming somebody in this world, and you live as though you are your ego. So in my case, I live as Cody. I do, I have wants and desires and all this stuff. And even if, say, I became a very successful doctor or pharmacist or whatever, I do a lot of good things in the world. That doesn't mean that's why I came here to Earth as a soul. That doesn't mean that that's why I came here to Earth. And so when it is time for the soul to wake up, it's like, oh, hey, all right, now we can get to work and do what I'm meant to do. And it doesn't matter what you did. I mean, the stuff you did matters beforehand, but now you got to figure out what you're supposed to do after waking up. And it's not so straightforward.
Yeah, how does one find that out? How is that something that just me thinking about that right now is it's not mind-boggling. It's this it almost seems astronomically more inconclusive than just even starting like the YouTube stuff or the journey of 1,000 miles, right? Because you don't how can you even try to process the first step of something that you have no connection with? It would be like me right now, and I'm like, you know what? I want to go to this. I want to see what the sun looks like up close. That's what I'm saying. You what? You know what I mean?
I mean, you could,
How could you do that?
in the
So
astral realm, you could probably do that. But yeah, physically, no.
that's what I'm saying.
And it's,
Um, how do you even take that first kind of step for somebody who doesn't even know where to start with some kind of spirituality aspect like that?
I think that's the paradox. And in my exploration, I think about like, did you have any dreams as a kid? I know, like with my example, growing up, I loved supercars like Lamborghinis and McLaren F1 and all this stuff. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, get my degree there, and go to something like Wyotech, learn fabrication, welding, all these things. I wanted to design and build my own supercar. I guess they're called hypercars now.
No, supercars still exist. They've been overshadowed by now hypercars. So, but yeah, car world's ridiculous now. Ever since the ZR1X came out, everything's upside down. So, but
And, especially after even before that, like I did an engine swap on my truck that I had from high school. Put a 383 stroker with a carbureted, so I made it go backwards in time. From fuel injected to carbureted. And that whole project, which I did all myself, with just a little help of my dad and my uncle, but that burnt me out on cars. After that, I didn't even want to look at a car. I mean, just enough to get me from point A to point B. Other than that, I hate cars. Like they're stupid.
I like cars when I can pay someone to fix it. I can pay
Yeah.
someone to do something. I like driving them. That's about it.
And then especially when I started riding bikes with you, motorcycles, I was like, yeah, cars are stupid. Like motorcycle, $5,000, you can have a rocket in between
Yeah.
your legs and you get the full experience of it.
Yeah.
So
Anymore, it's for about 20 grand, you can embarrass almost any car out there. So
Hmm. And then, so that dream is not something I would look at because it's stuff. Anyways, even the motorcycles are a lot of fun, but it's still stuff. And then later on, after I left the military, went back to college, and originally I wanted to be a pharmacist. But you know why I wanted to be a pharmacist?
what is that?
Because my cousin, who was my best friend at the time, was a pharmacist. I was like, oh, I want to be like her, you know. And when I was working through school, and I was in the chemistry library one day, I found a group of pre-med students. They were like me. They were in the library studying all the time or doing homework. They never left. I'm like, I'm more like them. So I think I want to be a doctor, because I can help people. I can change lives. I can do that more as a doctor than I can as a pharmacist.
Absolutely.
But here's the problem. I was wanting to be like these other people. This is what makes this whole thing very difficult, is that part of that losing the meaning and the purpose and all of that stuff, a lot of that, a lot of those things are what others may have told us is meaningful, is purposeful. You should do this. You would be good at this. But do we want to do that? You know?
Is there a chance that everything aligns and that they were there to help you along that path? That's
Maybe.
yeah. That's the thing. That's the 10 billion sided die you're rolling. You just don't
Yeah.
know.
You
So
don't know. What did you want to be growing up?
I really liked astronomy. I loved okay, astronomy and due to Jurassic Park, paleontology. So I loved those equally. And if I could get a book from the library, it was one of three things. It was either something related to dinosaurs, something related to astronomy, like a galaxy book or something,
Mhm.
or something with like tanks and guns. Because I was a young boy growing up, so that was pretty cool too. But I loved watching documentaries on Discovery Channel. I if I can find a good documentary on Amazon or Netflix or something that is related to the crazy anomalies in space, think quasars and gamma rays and super massive black holes, the crazy things that we really don't know that much about that are billions and trillions of light years away that could offer potentially either infinite energy or an infinite number of universes within themselves and gateways to other realms or something. Because we really don't know, because we can't get close enough to any of them because you'll just be dematerialized, spaghettified or whatever. But I really wanted to get into astronomy or paleontology simply because probably those documentaries that I grew up watching and, like I said, Jurassic Park. Those those were the two things. I never really, uh, even then when I got a little bit older, I kind of realized early on that there wasn't really anything I wanted to do as far as what do I want to work for. I loved, and I always had a great work ethic. Like I could outwork anybody. I could do what needed to be done, but there was just nothing in my head that was clicking on every level of, hey, will this make me enough money to potentially raise a family and get the things that I want? Is it something that you're going to be happy doing? Because it's important. Not that you have to absolutely love what it is, but is it going to defeat your soul more than it's worth, right? Because there's a trade-off there. If you can if it's something that you can do that does afford you enough money so that you can do whatever you need to do outside of work and have a good life, if the money you make outweighs the stress in your job, then that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It just seems like that's more and more rare as the days going on. So, or as the time goes on. But that's how I've always thought is there's nothing that really resonated with me early on other than just people shouting out ideas, hey, you should get into this or you should do this. Oh, these guys make great money. Engineers make great money. That's kind of like what you were talking about. It always seemed like somebody else had a direction for you or a call out.
Hmm.
So,
And one method that I came across recently was, and this may be a good way to figure out what your purpose is as far as things to explore. But if you ask yourself, like, get still and like a mini meditation, you don't have to meditate. Just take a few deep breaths, close your eyes and ask the question, should I pursue doing something like this? And if your body tightens up, clenches, then the answer is no. That's resistance. And if you stay relaxed, then maybe it's something worth looking into. But I think the like what you mentioned, the soul, I forget what words you use, but it sounded a lot like aligning with your soul. Like if something doesn't align with your soul, then there's going to be kickback, and especially after or during the or the awakening process. Stuff that, so for example, if you wake up, you know that we are all God, and whatever it is that you did for work is taking advantage of people. That's going to be something that's probably going to be, there's going to be some resistance there because you know that the people that you're taking advantage of are not just you, reflections of you, but it's also God, so yeah, like I think that's part of the whole process of figuring out how to explore is figure out where, just like with any other thing in your life, if there is if you get in tune with your heart or your gut or wherever you experience your connection with your soul, if there is resistance in some way, if there's like a clear, like with me, it was with work. My job I've been doing the last 7 years. It's crazy that I've been there that long. But there was a lot of kickback right there. And yeah, just maybe there's something, and like in our case, maybe those things aren't what we came here to do. Maybe it is. I mean, who knows? I really don't want to work on cars, like, or do any of that.
so full circle, coming back to that, yeah, I do not want to do that. And I think that there's a lot to be said about even just trying a direction because
Hmm.
how do you really know if it's something that you want to do unless you give it somewhat of a try, Granted, there's, you know, I don't have like I don't want to be a surfer. Right? I don't like the ocean. The ocean's terrifying. Sharks are
Yeah.
scary. So I'm not going to try surfing. But there's like limits to this. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm terrified of heights. Well, you should go bungee jumping. Like,
Or
will it make you feel better? I doubt it. But I I don't know. Who am I to say? Is it is Has there ever been anybody cured of being afraid of heights from just jumping off of something really high? Is that a thing? Yeah.
Maybe.
People who are arachnophobic, like, do they
Oh
get over it
goodness.
if someone hands them a spider? I think I don't
Probably
know.
not.
Probably not, right? Probably not. But I would say within reason that you should try things because I think that regardless of whether or not it leads you to your passion or your calling, it could lead you to the next one. That could
Yeah.
lead you to the next one. That could lead you to the next one. Had you have not worked your job, you and I wouldn't have met,
Yeah.
and you could have already been on this journey. I don't know, but you wouldn't be right here on this particular journey that you're on right now, and that's
Absolutely.
something, right?
Yeah, that certainly this certainly doesn't discredit, what we did in the past because that's just how life is. We came here to be human and we're being human, you know. But like we've talked about, I was an introvert before and I never would have seen myself doing something like this. And so there for a while I was having to face my fears, and I'd be at work, we'd do an interview earlier in the day and I'd be at work and I'm just got this nervous energy that's finally come up to the surface and I'm just you know, like uncomfortable in my own skin because it's like my ego is like, what the hell are you doing? What, what, you're going to get hurt, quit, stop it. I'm just like, no. So yeah, again, within reason, but I mean, yeah, there's a number of ways to look at this. So maybe, because the reason why I brought up, what do you want to be when you grow up is because at about the age of 8 is when we develop our egos.
Yeah.
So up until that point, so our identities, we start to have an identity. But before that, we're in our soul, and that's the reason why I think kids are so unruly. Like my 3-year-old daughter, she doesn't know the limits of the world yet, Yeah. So why they're so unruly, at a young age is because as a soul, you're kind of in this new playground. You don't know what the limits are yet. You don't know what you can and can't do. And then you start to learn these things and the boundaries and things. And with me getting back into the trails thing, like today, I went and did a little over 14 miles this morning on the trails up here, and
Are you hurting?
not too bad. I
No.
pushed it a little too hard today, I think, because it was just hot. It was a lot hotter than it was last week, but my quads didn't give out this time.
Right.
It was a great time though, and my current limit, I guess, is about 10 miles, and starts getting really hard, and it's all like I told you, it was mental after that point, and just trying to get through it that way, and I don't know, am I meant, or is part of this, who I am, is that an ultra runner? I don't know, but it's definitely a place that I'm exploring. Maybe it's not like my full on purpose, but it's something that I'm finding joy in. You know,
Yeah.
and you can dip your toes into the water. You don't have to jump fully in.
No.
And so, and the same. Okay, so I wanted to be a doctor. There's a lot of people who want to be doctors or whatever, who want to help people, but with my panic attacks and all that stuff, I realized that being a doctor isn't necessarily the way to actually help people, you know, because you need people who are hurt. Like I don't want to go too deep in that. I mean, doctors can help people, but how else you can help people? Feed people or whatever. There's tons
Yeah.
of ways. Go volunteer somewhere.
Yeah. Volunteer, like what you did with the
a
Circle of Life.
hospice.
Was it Circle of Life? Is that what it
Yeah,
was called?
yeah,
Or I mean, even at your local animal shelter,
yeah, yeah.
you go and walk a shelter dog that's been there, or that maybe just needs to be seen a little bit on the social media stuff. I think that it's those little kind. What's up, buddy? It's those little kind of things. Come here. He stuck his big fat blockhead in here and was seeing what I was doing. I don't even think he realized I was in here until just now. So, what are you doing, dude? Huh? Come here. We're talking about you. Come here. Look at this guy. He was a shelter guy one time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's another thing too. It doesn't. There's something out there that you're passionate about that gets you excited when you think about it, and just because we talked about if you would you be able to do something that helps you make enough money to be able to survive? Like in the beginning, like you don't have to do that. Like I'm not getting paid for podcasting, and you're not going to be for with your YouTube channel right off the bat. But there's always possibility. You don't.
absolutely. You can build it, and nothing is ever going to start with just that one video, right? It becomes
Yeah.
a consistent thing, or maybe very rarely does it ever a life-changing event come out of just that one video, but it has to be a consistency thing, and you're going to get discouraged, probably a lot. You're going to narrow or potentially expand your pathway, whichever kind of works as you find your way, right? As you find your own path.
And
So,
so when you go out there and you do something meaningful for somebody or for pets or animals at the shelter or whatever, something that you are either passionate about that maybe you haven't done in a long time, but you would like to do it, or something you always wanted to do that you thought you would like. There's so many, like there's no clear answer to this, but if you are here, there's a reason why you're here. And the only way you figure that out is by figuring out what you are still passionate about. Because even if you don't have purpose and meaning right now, you don't feel like you do, you absolutely have some kind of a passion. There's still something out there that gets you excited and brings out that little kid in you. And what if you want to do a job like being a doctor or something, and you want to, but you don't want to commit to it. For example, just go out there and help somebody in some way. There's a million different ways to help somebody, and then go from there. Take one
yeah.
step, one small step for. But
One small
because
step for you.
here's the thing, and with the soul thing, I think ultimately what we're, at least the way I feel, is the soul probably wants to do something. At least my soul wants to do something that leaves humanity better than, or leaves Earth better than when I came here.
All right. Well, I think you're on the right track. I, I think your exercise for maybe trying to figure out what resonates with you, you said to not necessarily meditate, but to kind of, right? And to see if the idea that you have makes you tense or keeps you staying relaxed, and that could definitely lead you down the right path. I think that's a good intro for someone who may not even be very spiritual,
Yeah.
to
Well,
go down that pathway. So
and even as a starting point, I mean, yeah, because this applies to anybody on whatever journey you're on. Maybe you're not even into. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably on a spiritual journey of some sort. But if you happen to stumble in here and you're not, then I invite you to just put your hand over your heart and get in touch with that space behind your hand. And by doing that, you're moving your awareness into that space. So when you're up here, when you're up in your head, you're probably going to be up in your ego. So come down here and then start asking questions about, okay, what would I like to do? What would me, that's what's in the, I believe is anchored in the heart space, others, in the gut and so on. That's where you'll get in touch with who you truly are wants to do. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. I'm gonna have to try it because I've never even thought about that. You're a lot more spiritual than I am.
I'm just being forced into it. It's I'm struggling to figure this stuff out. I'm thinking, I'm writing a lot, like journaling every day,
Good.
and yeah,
Well, I know that's
just
what it takes. I know to make those changes. It's again, it's exactly like the YouTube analogy we keep going back to is just the consistency. It's you don't get the body that you want by just going to the gym once, or going and running one time. It's a consistency thing. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't necessarily have, you know, you want to brush your teeth once a month either, is what I'm saying. Right? You have to be consistent with it, and that's how you keep things going. And I think that eating right, things like brushing your teeth, good habits are built on consistency. And unfortunately, bad habits are built on consistency and sometimes just like
hmm
laziness and stuff. So, um, but yeah, I think that's probably the entire lesson here is perseverance and consistency, honestly.
yeah,
And because whether or not you find your initial calling from even doing the exercise which you recommended, if that doesn't work out, then it's about persevering and being consistent with the next one that might.
yeah, and even so, going back to Moana,
I gotta watch this movie. I gotta watch it and actually pay attention.
her people were wayfinders and explorers, but she didn't have those skills yet. So if there's something that you want to do, you may not have the skills to be able to do that. So maybe getting started in one thing helps you develop the skills that you need to do. Like I've been thinking about doing some public speaking thing.
Toastmaster stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever go to one of those?
I keep forgetting about it. I need to do it. Um, yeah. So just explore. It may not have meaning and purpose right now, but there's something out there that you will get excited about. You and your unique avatar is perfect for this, that nobody else wants you, or like, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks you should do. Do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's great. Great advice. That's that's the best advice you could give somebody.
And reflect on the things that you want to do and see if do you like to do it because people say you should like to do it, or do you actually like to do things?
Well, again, I think that that's probably worth trying, worth seeing.
Yeah.
Because if it's something that sounds interesting, at least, then who knows? That
Yeah.
person who suggested that could have been on part of your journey anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe you still, even if they didn't say anything, but since you're in that, whatever it is, like you still like it, you would still want to do it, even if the person never said anything about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just reflection and just seeing. Yeah. I think that's a great episode.
So
You want
yeah,
to call it good?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the Unifying Field. If this type of content resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to share your story as a guest or discuss a spiritual topic you are passionate about, please message me on one of the many platforms I am on at the Unifying Field. And I will end this by saying Namaste, which means the divine in me honors the divine in you. Bye, everybody.